Hey everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and today I want to talk to you about my favorite author of all time, Matthew Woodring Stover. So this is actually the first book of his that I read. This is not the first book in the series. There's a book called Heroes Die, which I have loaned out. As such, I need to just go ahead and buy myself another copy because I really want to support this guy and because it's a fantastic book. But this is actually the book I started with. I didn't even know Heroes Die existed, so this is the sequel, Blade of Tishal. There are two more sequels, Cain Black Knife and Cain's Law, which are in the same series. The series with Cain really is what drew me into him as an author. So this story is set in a futuristic world wherein we've devolved into a caste system with leisure men at the top, and mind destroyed, lobotomized slave people at the bottom, with just a few classes in between. In this world, the primary form of entertainment is Overworld, which is television. Except it's not really television. They've discovered a way to send people to an alternate dimension that bears a lot in common with the stories that we have, medieval fantasy type stories. There are stonebenders, which are analogous to dwarves, etc., etc. In that world, we send our people. They're strapped up basically with cameras, and we have reality television featuring these people from our future world in this fantasy sci-fi setting, and they are they're actors, and you can pay to watch their adventures after the fact, or you can stream them live, depending on how much money you have or what class you are. The actors are kind of owned by the studio. They get sent over there, they go on adventures, they get pulled back occasionally, the adventures get turned into serialized stories and sold later. But in this, we follow Harry Michaelson, who's actually the assassin Cain in the other universe. And Cain is the baddest of bad mothers you will ever encounter. Like, Cain is death incarnate. He's everything I love about rogues rolled into one character. He's a smartass. He's super competent and skilled. He occasionally gets himself in over his head. Okay, more than occasionally. He screws up a lot. He regularly takes down opponents that are bigger than him or stronger than him, occasionally even smarter than him. Sometimes all three, in the case of Ma'el Koth. But he's an assassin, and in the first book, his wife has kind of gone missing. She's actually also an actor, and she plays a river goddess, but she's also been smuggling human beings out of a war zone in this world, and taking care of these people. And the local establishment does not like that, so he fears for his wife's life, and doesn't know what really is going on. They're kind of separated at the time. All sorts of normal drama in their relationships. But Heroes Die as a book is just a, like, non-stop from beginning to end. This is, a commentary on violence in our media, on reality television, on the state of the world and the 99%. There's a lot of monologuing that feels like old school noir detective type stories, because Harry has to monologue in his head some of the things that he sees, or some of the things he's thinking, or some of the things he's doing, so that other people on the other end can actually experience it, or so that the context of the various scenes he's in makes sense to the audience that's watching or following along with him. It's just a really, really impressive book. And then this one outdoes it. This is my favorite book of the series, and it's almost hard to describe. His real enemy in this is the Faceless God, and the Faceless God is basically humanity, and it consumes everything, like natural resources, people's lives, hours, time, anything it can find. And now the world, the fantasy world, the TV executives and the suits and the businessmen and the leisuremen who control the world have started kind of invading it and starting to exploit its natural resources. And Kane isn't about to have that. At this point, he's actually working as a studio executive, and is not happy about this at all. I won't spoil anything in the books because I recommend heavily that everybody read them. Like, they're a mixture of fantasy and dystopian sci-fi with one of the most badass central characters I've ever seen, ultra strong supporting female characters, really intricate plots that don't talk down to the reader. It's not dumbed down at all. They're incredibly philosophical books asking major questions that pertain to our current reality, not just the two that are referenced in the novels themselves. Each one is structured slightly different. Some have flashbacks. Some actually have a flashback and the current storyline running in parallel to better illustrate how things have changed or how they've stayed the same, actually. They're very tightly written. In the first book, there's actually a costume party that features a lot of Kane's villains from his past exploits. At this point, he's already popular. But in some of the other books, we actually start to see, like, those past exploits and those villains when they are actually on camera instead of just people wearing costumes pretending to be them. Really, really amazing series of books. Stover's other books are really good. I would recommend them as well. He's done a lot of the old sci-fi universe books, including a novelization of the third prequel movie, which actually makes it a passable storyline. Like, he actually manages to salvage George Lucas's shit pile into something that is coherent, cognizant, and actually worth reading. The books are much better than the movies in the prequel trilogy. But I highly recommend Matthew Stover. He's been my favorite author since I read Blade of Tishal, which I guess, when did this guy come out? Looking for it. It's 2001. So since I read it in 2001, it's a huge... it's a huge success in my book, although the publisher doesn't feel the same way. Unfortunately, it hasn't received as much critical acclaim as I think it deserves. It was out of print for a long time. It is available now as an ebook. You can read it online, and it's fantastic. I suggest you do so in any way you can get it. Most of the major fantasy authors that I've read since then were recommended by him. He recommended Scott Lynch, Patrick Rothfuss, and various other authors who I now love. So most of the... Joe Abercrombie is another one of his recommendations that I've gotten into. I read a lot of old school Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett because he recommended them. Like, he's a very, very intelligent guy, and his novels are amazing, and I don't think he gets nearly enough credit. But he's kind of influenced my entire fantasy, sci-fi, fiction in general reading since I discovered him. So check him out, Matthew Woodring Stover. Some of his later books just have him as Matthew Stover, so either way you can find him. He is on Twitter, he is on Facebook. He's not nearly as active as he used to be. But yeah, some of the quotes on his stories are just awesome. I remember John Scalzi on his blog actually did a huge article when I think it was Kane Blackknife came out, talking about how the book actually managed to kick him in every neuron he owned. He was actually hand-sold the book by a a guy at one of my local bookstores. We have a local bookstore chain called Joseph Beth. There are 2 of them here in the Cincinnati area, one in Louisville, maybe one in Lexington, I can't remember. There aren't very many, but it's a local bookstore chain. And all of the people who work there have to pass a test on literature and modern novels and stuff in order to work there, which is really awesome, so they really know their stuff. So all of them are very good at recommending books that you might enjoy, and John Scalzi was actually in there for a book signing or something and asked for any recommendations, and they said, here, you have to read this, and pressed a copy of Heroes Die into his hand. And he too became a Matthew Woodring Stover fan at that point. Awesome stuff. Start with Heroes Die. If you like Heroes Die, by all means, Blade of Tishal, Cain Black Knife, and Cain's Law are all fantastic. All of his previous novels, which, let me pull this up. There's a list of them. He has one that has a female character. Yes, Iron Dawn and Jericho Moon. It's a female character set in, I can't remember whether it's Greek or Roman times. But she's a badass mercenary captain, and she has all sorts of mercenaries. There's an Egyptian mercenary working with her, and various things like that. So it's a little bit of a different time period. All of his Star Wars stuff is really good. But yeah, Matthew Woodring Stover, check him out. That's it for today. Later.